in urban destination will begin. We kindly ask all of the participants to take their seats. Thank you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. We're now going to begin session 1 titled Looking Towards 2030, an Innovative Approach to Competitiveness in Urban Destination. This session will explore how urban tourism needs a new thinking to optimize the needs and expectations of the new customer through innovation and technology. Moderating this session is Professor Kim Chuan, Professor of College of Hotel and Tourism Department at Kyunghee University here in Korea. Please welcome Professor Kim with a warm round of applause.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chul Kim, Professor, College of Hotel and Tourism Management, Kyunghee University, Seoul, Korea. It's my honor to have this opportunity to moderate this wonderful session. As you know very well, this session is the most important portion of this summit program. This morning we had a high-level panel discussions. Also, our session is to explore the new dimension of competitiveness in urban destination, and more to identify innovative ways to meet needs and expectations of new consumers. This morning, it's a high-level panel mentioned that sustainability and new urban agenda. As you know well, as a sustainable development goal, they have 17 goals. Among them, goal A is to make cities human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Also, the executive director from UNWTO mentioned that it's very important to think about sustainability. As you know well, sustainability has 3 pillars: environmentally sound, economically viable, as well as social-culturally identifiable. In our session, it's very important because we gotta elaborate more concrete, real strategy and tactics. So we are delighted to have the very distinguished panel of experts. So I'm gonna invite distinguished panels from Rudy SALLES, who is the director of you have a vice mayor, sorry, is Nice, France. Please welcome. Okay. Second panel will be Manu NARVAEZ, who is the director of the Sebastian Tourism Board in Spain. Thank you very much. Okay. Next panel will be Jose Andre Duarte. He came here from faraway Colombia. He's the director of Bogota Tourism Board. Welcome. Nice to meet you. Next panel will be Chuan, is the director of Singapore Tourism Board. So you deal with digital transformation, right? Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Also, we have a very valuable guest. It's from private sector, Fernando Dalle. He is the vice president of your company's name is Transparent, right? Okay, welcome. Okay. Because our session is very important to look at strategy and tactics. Particularly, we're going to show some case related to promoting this urban tourism. We invite the very distinguished speakers. Ahmed, our dear. Okay. I was looking forward. Okay, sit down. Okay. First of all, Mr. Ahmed will deliver a speech, actually around 15 minutes or so, on the topic of this session. Our topic is looking forward 2030, innovate approach to competitiveness in urban destination. So please welcome Mr. Ahmed. Make a presentation on the topic, and then we're going to have a lively discussion, and we're going to have some also. I want you to all audience engage is fully in discussion and questions. Your comment and advice input would be appreciated. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you so much, Kim. Ladies and gentlemen, quite an honor for me and representing the World Bank to be among all of you distinguished participants and panelists today. I just realized it, preparing my presentation to you, how difficult it is to take the task of setting the scene. But let's declare now, if I set the scene wrong, I will take the blame. And if I set the scene correct, the panelists and moderator will take the credit. This session is particularly important because it comes after the morning sessions where we heard the framework from our distinguished speakers, especially the one on the progression of tourism economy value and how we move as a framework from commodities and services into experience and now transformational. Our tourism involvement, whether in hard infrastructure or soft infrastructure, legal regulatory aspects, policy, and so on, have now to be transformational. If we are saying tourism contribution to GDP is growing, tourism is the second or third most important export sector in many countries, especially in developing countries, then we have to think big. We have to think transformational, as Joseph said this morning. So what we are going to do now with the distinguished panelists is to share with you some ideas how to do it. We heard in the morning of what to do. Now we will think together on how to do it. I will just to make two arguments, if you would allow me. The first argument is why urban tourism? I think what we heard today is tourism hubs are urban, are in urban cities. As we heard from the vice mayor of Nice, it's actually not even a city. The hub, tourism hub of the French Riviera is a Metropolitan. So this is urban, okay? So that's, and if the hub is not working, destinations, spokes will not be working. And as you know, in tourism itinerary route, we have a hub and surrounded by a number of tourism attractions like satellites, or we call spokes. So the hub has to be functioning. It is where airports are, where main railway stations are, museums, art galleries, big hotels, cinemas, big art performance, big creative industry. So the hubs have to be working. The tourism, urban tourism, has to function well. But also, we heard so many points this morning. If the hub is not livable for its own citizens, it's not going to be attractive for tourists. And take our word for that. We have seen it in so many countries. If a hub, if a city or a metropolitan is not functioning in terms of infrastructure, poor water, energy cuts, air pollution, no good urban transport system, traffic congestion. If it's not livable to its own citizens, if it's not meeting the sustainable development goals, why, if I am a tourist, I will go there? Or I will go just avoid the hub and go to a spoke. But that's a missed opportunity, because instead of staying in this hub and spoke as an integrated destination for 3-4 days or a week, I will just shorten my stay into 1 day or 2 days. So that's an economic missed opportunity. That's the first argument I want to make. The second argument is, as you see in the screen, since we are talking about urban tourism vision 2030, we heard from many speakers this morning that we need to align ourselves with the new urban agenda 2030 and with the sustainable development goals. So what we would like to suggest in this session, and which will set the scenes for next sessions as well, is we think of urban tourism to work through 4 pillars of sustainable urban tourism. The first one, think of the hubs as competitive destinations. And then in my presentation, I will talk about how to do it. Second, livable destinations. Third, it's inclusive destinations. And finally, it's resilient destination. Okay, let's start with the competitiveness. We have prepared a framework called Competitive Cities, which basically looking at enables mayors and practitioners, policymakers, to understand what economic sectors you have in your city or metropolitan or even province, what sectors are declining, what sectors are growing, and if a situation comes like Joseph mentioned this morning, when you move from agrarian to industrial to service, if tourism and culture and travel are one of the growing economic sectors in your city or province, then you can apply this competitiveness framework to understand how to position tourism as a competitive economic sector in your city or in your urban setting to create jobs and reduce poverty. In many cities now, in many countries, tourism contributes from 3 all the way to 70% of GDPs, like in Maldives or some island countries. So it's essential to understand, when we say competitive urban tourism, it's essential to understand not only what investments we need to do to make the sector more competitive, but what constraints are facing the sector. And when we say constraints, it's not only in terms of physical infrastructure or hard infrastructure, but also in terms of business enabling environment, the legal and regulatory framework, the labor market and workforce development, the planning aspects. So all of these issues needs to be looked at together to make our destinations competitive. Second one is livability, livable destinations. I think when we go around here in Seoul, it gives us an excellent example of a livable cities. That you have functioning infrastructure, good air quality, it's safe for its own citizens and tourists, and you have fulfilled experience, whether you go through the regenerated urban areas or culture neighborhoods, you have full experience. It's really a pleasure to live in a city. And as you see here, people sitting, enjoying drink, or in many European cities and other cities now in the world, that's how to make the city attractive. And that's experience we are talking about. It's not just monuments to go see Pisa Tower or the pyramids or something. It's this experience you have. Experience the intangible heritage, local cuisine, drink, see a folkloric performance, try the local costume like what we did outside today. sit, mingle with the urban structure, have a street life experience. So that's the livability. We heard today many aspects about over-tourism. Well, some argue that there is nothing called over-tourism, because over-tourism is a positive phenomena. More tourists coming to your city or destination is positive. I think the issue is not over-tourism. The issue is poor planning of tourists coming in love of your destination. Then we meet such a decision of families to come to see your destination, saying, no, we closed today over tourism. That's bad planning, bad marketing. We heard several options about, create new destination, disperse, improve site management, and that's an area we would like to hear from our distinguished panelists about it. In the World Bank, we developed an instrument to help destinations that are called as over-tourist destinations or heading towards being over-tourism, to prepare what we call strategic, environmental, social, and cultural heritage assessment. It's basically as cities prepare their master plan or development plan, it goes in tandem with it. It looks at the cumulative, direct and indirect impact of increased tourism influx in your destination. So if you say, my number will go in the next 5 or 10 years from 1 million to 3 million visitors or tourists, what's the impact of that in society, community? How can make the community benefit from such tourism growth and contribute to? What's the impact on environment? Because tourism may eventually degrade the environment for which the first reason tourists come. And on cultural heritage, what's the carrying capacity of our cultural heritage sites and how to improve our visitor management? So all these aspects together is studied in what we call the SESHA and comes up with a mitigation plan. We will make example of this instrument of concrete cases completed in a number of countries available on the website, so you can consult, and if you find it useful, you can apply in your destinations. Inclusive destinations, urban destinations. One of the main reasons why some societies throw tourists with stones is that they are not benefiting from tourism increase. They see tourists come with a bus just passing their area, but they don't stop, they don't spend in their areas. They only get the trash behind and pollution from moving transport. Inclusive destinations, how to bring the communities, at the planning stage. If we are serious about consultation, about community involvement, they have to be involved at the planning stage of our tourism destinations. Otherwise, it will be post de facto or placation. And secondly, how to think how local communities will benefit from tourism growth and have a program for them to benefit, whether it's matching grant, microcredit, advisory service, help them start micro enterprises. And that's actually what tourists now like, because connected to community and experiencing with them their traditional values, that's the authenticity we were talking about in the morning. So it is a win-win situation. Finally is the inclusive destinations. It's important to think in particular about women in tourism. It's not something, a byproduct that may happen or may not happen. We really need to think about gender balance and how we offer special programs for women, especially in developing countries. About safety and disability. I see so many tourists go in a wheelchair, they cannot go on the sidewalk, and they decide to go back to the bus and abort their trip. Finally, I would like to talk about resilient destinations. And I think here, Seoul and many other cities offer very good experience that If your destination is prone to typhoon, cyclone, earthquake, or sometimes the cultural heritage has wooden roof, it's prone to fires. So there is a framework now we piloted in many countries and many cities. It's called multi-hazards risk assessment and mitigation plan. It's a tool that has been tested, it's available. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It looks at what type of hazards we have, what exposure that the destination will have, what vulnerability, and then the risk and the mitigation. And I think the palace here next door in Seoul offers a very good example of an integrated site management plan with risk mitigation, with a visitor management plan, with carrying capacity, evacuation plan, and so on. So if we do these 4 aspects together, that's where we can have sustainable urban tourism that's aligned with the new urban agenda, United Habitat 3, and the Sustainable Development Goals, especially Goal 11. It will increase, it will ultimately achieve what all of us want on our destinations. We want increased tourist arrivals, increased tourism spending in local communities, and increased level of satisfaction in an inclusive manner. Just to conclude on a couple of slides, our colleagues in UNWTO asked me to say a word about why the World Bank is involved in sustainable tourism and what support we give. In the World Bank, we have what we call the twin goals, and that's to end extreme poverty, helping all of you and meet the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, and promote shared prosperity. So everything we do has to fit these 2 targets. And as we heard this morning, tourism is job-creating sector. It is an export sector. Its contribution to GDP is increasing. It has huge potentials to fight poverty. So that's why we are involved in the tourism sector. We invested now in about 146 projects worldwide in the amount of about $2.5 billion in about 45 countries. Some of you, we were talking this morning, we have active projects there or a pipeline one, and it is a growing sector within the World Bank. We work together now with UNWTO and UNESCO as thought leaders in supporting most of the developing countries. We also have the IFC, which is the International Finance Corporation. It also have an active portfolio of 500 million as we help countries with, as World Bank helps countries with hard infrastructure, with policy and the regulations, all public good. We have IFC comes with financial support to private sector to construct hotels, boutique hotels, airports, anything that's private domain. I would like to thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me to be here, and I hope I set a reasonably good scene for the panelists to continue and to have very good discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed, for his excellent and insightful presentation. Actually, he identified very important concept. It's 4 categories of it's urban destinations: competitive destination, and inclusive destination, and resilient destination, also livable destination. I think the 4 concept is understandable, well organized. Thank you very much. It's Vice Mayor Rudy SALLES. Several years ago, I visited Nice. Nice is a very wonderful city near Cannes. Yeah? Over there is a Professor Dimitris Valis. He wrote nice papers a long time ago. He mentioned the 6 elements to have a competitive advantage in certain destination. It's attraction, accessibility, amenities, activities, available packaging, and auxiliary service. That's a powerful tools to understand destination. It's coincidentally is Dr. Valis over there. Vice Mayor, what do you think about your city? to develop urban destinations. It's the best competitive urban destinations.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with you and to talk about this huge activity which is tourism in the world. And it's an activity of the future, and so we have to invest in the intelligence for develop this activity in many domains. Listed amongst the world's leading smart cities, awarded the Ambassador City for Innovation in Europe, labeled by the European Commission, and Model City as part of the Digital City Challenge, Nice has been affirmed its position as a land of innovation, especially in the field of tourism. Aware of changes in travelers' behavior in the context of digital transformation, of new consumer trends linked to the sharing economy, of the multiplicity of sales channels, and of the social network, Nice innovates to aim at excellence and originality in tourism. The Nice-Côte d'Azur metropolitan area has been published a bilingual work of unique design between sea and mountain, the spirit of a territory, which combines the aesthetic of a beautiful art book with the experience of enriched digital reading. Nice fosters the development of innovation linked to welcome service, supporting travelers in their choices through fun ideas for activities or itineraries, artificial intelligence, client experimentation tools, chatbots, and digitization with the Nice-Côte d'Azur Metropolitan mobile portal. This unifying app brings together all the services aimed at citizens and tourists. Its initial version will incorporate an agenda of outings listing all the events being held across the territory, real-time availability of bike for hire, self-serve bikes, and car parks locations. Over time, it will also include accessible tourism services using NFC tags and QR codes during itineraries to discover the city. The Digitized Tourist Office is a tourist entry and reception portal that has widened its information offered to include online reservations as well as the French Riviera Pass, which is combining tours and transportation, and to showcase current tourism-related news. Nice is close to Europe's leading technology cluster, and it is also a territory that is sought after by innovative business in the tourism sector. These companies come to Nice to test their solutions, develop activity and partnerships, and set up new services. Side by side with international companies like Amadeus, local startups are wellspring of ideas and creativity. With over 40 startups like Mobendi, Webels, Gralon, and Stilt hosted at the European Business and Innovation Center, the Smart Travel Experience Cluster brings together e-travel business along the Côte d'Azur to bring about the emergence of a world territory of excellence. At Nice Airport, passengers are as well as tourism and event professionals can reserve VIP reception arrangements using the e-commerce platform Nice Airport. The service facilitates clients' arrivals and departures and offers bespoke support with multilingual personal assistance. A pocket concierge developed by the French startup UNWTO has become the companion of connected clients. It gives instant answers to all their questions via a search engine, as well as using additional advisors to further refine the offer. We can also mention My Visito Côte d'Azur for setting up an itinerary tailored to travelers' expectations, and Urban Pulse, a multilingual mobile app to get to know everything about the city in real time and around you. For its part, Intrepid offers fun itineraries that take in partners' business, In Nice, for example, a single click is all it takes for tourists to make their own pizza, guess the ingredients of a local cocktail, or even become a bartender along the seaside Promenade des Anglais. In the hotel accommodation sector, Group NEHO has set up on-demand reservation for a new 4-star hotel, offering a service that also enables better use of the establishment whilst adapting to clients' needs, reservation by the hour, offices, etc. At last, we put in the transportation tramway the Wi-Fi to facilitate the communication for people living in Nice, but also for the tourists. That's what I wanted to tell you. It's a huge invest in the future, but anyway, if we don't evolve with our time, we will not be competitive in the world. So we have to go on in this direction. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, the Nice must have a variety of innovative approach to promote the city tourism. I'm so envy your city because your film has been positioned for your city. So could you recommendations to Seoul Metropolitan government to develop its film tourism or movie tourism? Any tips, any advice to the Seoul government?
You want me to invite the people to come to Nice and visit our city? Well, you know, the city, more than 1 century before, was a poor city, no industry, far from everything, because we were at 1,000 kilometers from Paris. The communications were not what they are today. And 1 century again, before, the kings and the Tsar from Russia and the king from United Kingdom decided to come for winter, for vacation, and to have a smart winter without snow and without freezing. And they have been creating the Côte d'Azur and the tourism on Côte d'Azur. Since this time, we had in winter aristocratic tourism. After the Second World War, we have developed new tourism, which was mass tourism, and people coming in summer and not in winter. That was a huge development for tourism, but we had also the problem of the balance between the summer, very high frequency, and the rest of the year. And since 30 years ago, we've been developing the business tourism with convention centers, and now we have tourism all the year long, which has been accentuated by the urban tourism that we have been developing 20 years ago. With the development of the low-cost companies, you can go from Nice to London, for example, for 50 euros round trip. You can go all over Europe for the kind of price. And so we have been developing a new tourism, shorter time, but very interesting because activity all the year long. And now, Nice has been developing a urban area, and tourism is not owned by the city only, but since 1st of January of next year, the Tourism Board of Nice will be the Tourism Board of the Metropolitan area. And like that, we are going to promote all the area of this Metropolitan. We have, of course, beaches and marinas, but also ski resorts. And so it's a variety of landscape, very important, probably one of the most important in the world, because in the same day you can go swimming and you can go skiing. So we are now promoting all this area, and we create in the same time solidarity between this landscape, because the activity of this landscape was not very important. And now we are developing the tourism in this landscape, which was not touristic, because of Nice, which is very touristic and which can attract people coming from all over the world, because it's known in the world, and show different kind of tourism: green tourism, white tourism, blue tourism, shopping tourism, culture tourism. All the possibilities are offered to the people.
You got everything, huh?
Thank you.
It's a direct menu. Is your city, relatively small city compared to Madrid and Barcelona. Is probably Mr. Ahmed mentioned that livable destination is, I think, it stick to you, right? So what do you think about your tourism situation? Probably you focus on as a citizen rather than tourist. What do you think?
Hello, nice to see you. Yes, comparing with other cities, Seoul, Bogota, Madrid, even Nice, San Sebastian is a small town. We are less than 200,000 people just in the north of Spain, that's the south of Europe. No airport, I mean, no local airport like as Nice has. Our closest airport is Bilbao, it's 100 kilometers, but it's another town. So we have also an history about tourism quite similar as the Nice has. The tourism started in San Sebastian 150 years ago when the Spanish crown used to come to San Sebastian to spend the summer. So, with the crown, of course, the elite yes, that came to San Sebastian that make a resort for the aristocracy. Yes? But this is many times ago, and tourism and life has changed, of course. Nowadays, San Sebastian is a small place, I said, quite successful in tourism. Last year, we had more than 1,500,000 overnights. I don't really know because the tourist apartments, we don't control them. How many people do sleep over there? So it's not easy, but it's quite successful. And wondering about today's issue, I realized that in our case, our goal is to make a city to live for inhabitants, because we are completely sure that a town that is good for inhabitants is attractive for visitors. That's our goal, that's our thinking. And when we realized last year and the last 2-3 years that we started having some problems that other cities have now, we wanted to prepare, not to get in the same space, not to get in the same trouble that other cities are. So we request, and we wanted to know exactly what was happening in our city. Not to have an idea, not to feel, but to know exactly what it was happening. And we request the University of Complutense from Madrid just to make a study, what was happening in the city. And they said, you are in a good condition, but take care of the public space management, because there are some places and parts of the city that have a big pressure, human pressure, not tourist pressure, but human pressure. You have to take care of tourist rentals, because it's an effect that can have or can attract more problems in the future. You have to take care of tourist governance, because as the vice mayor said, it's not a business on a town, it's a business of all of them, of Metropolitan. And also you have to take care of quality of the urban landscape. And after this study, and we made a plan, and the first decisions with the plan has not to be with tourism, but to the city. We made an ordinance of tourist rental in the city. It was the first one in Spain, made by a city hall. We made also a special plan for the old part. The old part in the city is the old part, of course, but this is the paradise of the gastronomy. Well, San Sebastian is very well known because of the gastronomy. Last month, Lovely Planet Guide ranked the best experience, the best culinary experience in the world. So the best one, the first one was having pinchos. Pinchos are small dishes that you can try on bars, stand up, and to go bar to having these dishes. So this experience for Lonely Planet was the best one in the world. That means that we have to take care of them. So the old part of the city is the paradise of them. You can find a lot of small bars with wonderful dishes like that. So, and we decided that we have to preserve it, and nowadays, no new hotels, no accommodation, no new bars can be developed over there because it's saturated. We say that it's a saturated place because we want people to still live in there, people to conserve as a resident. Also, we made an ordinance of the public space stricter than it was before. For events, you can do it. You can do it in some places, not in other places. Yes? You have to take care of them. And there are other lines of actions that belongs to tourism, but the main ones has to see with the city, with the life of the city.
Okay. You mentioned the gastronomy is a food tourism. Yeah. Who is the main target in your cities? Is senior people or young people?
Well, for us, food is our life. I mean, all the big things we make in our life is around a table. We are very close to France, so I think this influence is also is good for us. But food is very important. Food, the vegetables, the original meal is very important for us. And 30, 40 years ago, some chefs started thinking about how to combine tradition and vanguard, how to make new cuisine, but very close to our traditions. They started, and nowadays San Sebastian is, as I said, is a small town. We have three Michelin star restaurants, and the 3 chefs are from San Sebastian and local chefs. We also have others started Michelin started restaurant, but for us it's very important. But not only the high cuisine, also the everyday cuisine. Yes, we are very proud of them, and local people love them. So for us, it's our essence.
I see. Thank you so much. Yes. As a director, Jose under DUARTE, I don't know about your city. Could you introduce the city, and then what is your key success factors or unique selling proposition to promote your city in terms of tourism?
Yeah. So 먼저로 저는 오늘 와서 진짜 너무 행복해요. 3년 동안 여기에서 살았어요. 그래서 대한민국 진짜 너무 사랑해요. Thank you so much. And just 조금만 할 수 있어요. 그래서 연어로 설명할 거예요. So let me just say a little bit about our city. Bogota, it's the capital of Colombia. Right now, it's growing in terms of tourism. We're very pleased to get the good numbers in terms of international tourists arriving to our country and, of course, to our city. And what I can tell you is that Bogota, it's basically to connect with all this presentation. It's a hub based on the location of Bogota and based on the location of Colombia. Bogota plays the role as a hub to connect, of course, South America and North America easily. And right now, I can tell you some numbers. For example, about 80% of air flight connectivity goes directly to Bogota. And it's right now the 3rd largest airport in Latin America based on the number of passengers that the airport moves. So it is, of course, an opportunity for us to to try to bring more tourists based on their connectivity. Right now we receive around 10 million tourists. 8.2 are national tourists or local tourists, and almost 1.8 international tourists. This is a very important number for us since we have only 9 million inhabitants living in Bogota. So this is a little bit about Bogota, and right now I can tell you that connecting with livable cities and what are we doing actually to promote our city. We basically, with the mayor Enrique Peñalosa, who is actually running the second term, he started 20 years ago to build a city for Bogotanos, for the people who live actually in Bogota. And this is what you have been telling during the whole session about how to make a city livable for citizens. So one interesting thing that he started was to create dedicated and special bike lines for people actually to commute to their work riding bikes. And I can tell you that nowadays, every day, 800,000 people are actually riding bikes in Bogota. We have the largest network for dedicated bike lanes. And this is part of what he started 20 years ago. But that time, not even the word existed. In Spanish, we call it ciclorutas. And he was saying, okay, what is going to be the word that we will use to, to name this such infrastructure or network? So right now we have 500 kilometers of these dedicated dedicated lines for bikes. And there is no other country or even city in our continent that has that number of dedicated bike lines in Latin America. The other thing he has done, of course, is to work on how to create more wider, special, let's say, pedestrian sidewalks. And he, in the first time, he had a lot of troubles, of course, because people didn't want to take out the cards of the pedestrian sidewalks. And he took the decision to take them out, and he said, this is the place where people should be walking, and let's build some dedicated bike lines, but at the same time have a space for about 10 meters to 50 meters to people actually to walk in the city. He started this, and right now all the projects he is developing has at least 12 meters of a space for the pedestrians to walk. And I think this is definitely the way to build a city for citizens first. The other thing he has been working on is on parks. Right now Bogota has around 5,000 parks. He has built in this administration 100 new parks, but he has also fixed around 2,200 parks. So this is definitely connected with the way we should definitely provide first services to the citizens and then put it in service to the tourists. There are other things. During this administration, he has been telling us in how to work looking into the mountains we have. The mountains we have are actually the Andes. It is the largest, let's say, the largest chain of mountains we have in the world is the Andes. And in Bogota, we have the chance to look at them. So the mayor told us from the beginning of this term, we need to make people go to the Andes. We need to make people to take these beautiful paths and be close to nature. And we have done, of course, a very good job in terms of how to fix the paths and how to make signs for people to not get lost into the mountains. And I think this is part of his way of thinking in how to create first a city for citizens, and then how we can, connect it with, of course, tourism. And the other thing I can mention, I heard in the previous session about a cable car that the moderator from BBC went to Medellin, and he saw how the cable cars are actually connecting less developed areas from the city of Medellin to the most developed one. Right now, we are building a cable car to connect 800,000 people from the most, let's say, undeveloped area of Bogota, or less developed area of Bogota. And we are right now working with these people to make this as an opportunity, not only for transport them, not only in terms of transportation, but also in how to create economic opportunities for them. they can be the providers of many services, including food, including actually the tours they can make, of course, showing the graffitis that right now are very popular in Bogota, and that we are actually teaching them and showing them how to make these such graffitis, respecting, of course, the historical buildings. So we are working in how to make this Bogota more livable, and we are then connecting all this for the tourism sector. So right now, that's why we are working on a different, let's say, promotion strategy. We are actually selling a city where you can ride bikes, and that's why we have been developing a platform where you can connect more than 44 routes that people actually can download and use in GPX or download it in KMLL, or just take and download the map and go and enjoy the view of around Bogota, which is actually beautiful. But at the same time, we are connecting the city with the nature spirit, because we have, by the way, wetlands inside of Bogota where you can do bird watching. So people cannot even imagine that in Bogota, a city of 9 million inhabitants, you can actually find places full of nature, such as those wetlands that we call in Spanish humedales. So at the same time, we are connecting the páramos, a lot of ecosystems connected with nature, because this is the way that first we are preparing for citizens and then to show it to the tourism sector. That's probably the most important things we are working on, and of course to connect with technology, which is part of this session. We have been working with Google very, very closely, and right now I can tell you that we did an agreement with them. They have a nice machine that is called a tracker. The tracker, this is a machine with more than 32 cameras that they take and they invite people to go through places where the Google streetcar view cannot even register. So we are actually taking some of the most important pictures of 25 tourist attractions for people actually to understand what is happening in those areas. But at the same time, we are also working in hot spots. So not yet in the public transportation system, but at least we have 360 hot spots in the city that has been deployed in the last 2 years. So we have been working also in connectivity, and let's say in showing this other face of Bogota that people really don't get to know until they get for the first time to our marvelous city.
Okay, you mentioned a very important concept. Anyway, in order to promote the city tourism, perception, image, probably perceived psychological distance, very, very important. Do you have any programs or policies to overcome, to have a positive perception toward the city, or to overcome, to have a positive image or perception, and as well as to overcome perceived psychological distance? Even though you work so hard as a citizen, as a visitor doesn't know about that.
Yeah, I think the best strategy is to be persistent. You know that around 70% or 80% of the travelers are actually traveling because of the word of mouth. So when people actually get to know by others that the destination was safe, was nice, and they had a very good experience into that destination, I think we can definitely get the best promotion strategy. And we have been definitely enjoying a moment where Colombia now has been achieved a peace process with the guerrillas, which is, I think, very important in terms of what is happening in Colombia in general. Bogota has been a little bit outside of the problem because it's the capital and has been far away from the regions where we had some troubles. But right now, the country is definitely enjoying a very nice position in the whole region. People want to go to Bogota, people want to go to Colombia these days, but I think the best strategy is to keep doing all the efforts to invite people, to let them know that we have gastronomy, nature, we have a very nice nightlife. People in Colombia dance a lot, and we are actually promoting that too. So we have a lot of, let's say, experiences to enjoy in our country, and in particular in Bogota, that I'm sure that we'll only get the results until we persist and we, you know, do this permanent job of try to invite people. Then people will talk positively about our cities.
Okay, you said that you live in Korea for many years. What is the image of Seoul as an urban tourism destination?
The image of Seoul,
Yeah, yes.
it's fantastic. I think the image of this country, and in particular of Seoul, from people in Latin America, it's you know, a very technological country, a very innovative country, very creative. And I think the people, when they heard Seoul or when they heard South Korea, they immediately connect this with technology, with the cars, with the cell phones, and you have done a great job, and definitely that's the way people are connecting these days, at least in Latin America or in Colombia.
Okay, if you stay longer here, you can experience emotional attachment, emotional identity.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a Director Chuan, you are from Singapore. There's no doubt that Singapore is the most competitive destination in the world. It's particularly you develop state-art integrated resort, including casino, MICE facilities, and entertainment, something. So what is your key selling proposition and unique selling propositions?
Well, thank you, Professor Kim. Singapore is basically a very small city-state. So unlike some other countries where you have got very nice nature, mountains, nature reserves, we are a very small city-state. Tourism takes up about slightly over 4% of our GDP, but it's a very important piece of industry for Singapore because we are a manufacturing hub, we are a financial hub, and visitors, and we attract over 17.4 million visitors, foreign visitors to Singapore last year. So the visitors come to Singapore for many reasons. They come for leisure, they come for business travels, meetings, incentives, conventions, exhibitions. Some come for medical. We have, amongst the region, our medical practice in Singapore is pretty advanced, so they do come to Singapore for very complex medical surgeries and all that. Some come to Singapore for education as well. So Singapore is a destination that means a little bit of everything for a lot of people. Our key tourists comes from the region, almost more than 70% come from Asia Pacific. Therefore, a lot of things in Singapore has to work together. Our airport, we are now currently building our Terminal 5. So Incheon Airport has grown tremendously. So between us and Seoul, I mean, in the past, in the 80s and 90s, we were always called the four dragons of Asia, right? Singapore, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong. So we look to Seoul, we look to Incheon, and I think we can see that Incheon has been growing very well. So our airport has been growing. That's a key growth factor for Singapore. I think what is important for us going ahead is really about how do you sell Singapore as an authentic destination. People come to Singapore to see the authentic side of what is a Singapore way of life. So last year, I think we launched our new brand. We call it Passion Made Possible. We wanted to move away from the usual tourism spiel of selling buildings, attractions. That is important, but I think we really wanted to sell our spirit, our way of life. And therefore, when we look deep into ourselves, we discover that actually what we are selling is actually the spirit of Singapore, the people, the stories behind people, the everyday champions of Singapore, how they make Singapore the way it is today. So that gives us a lot of latitude to feature people who are very passionate about nature, people who are very passionate about food, and hopefully some of these stories will resonate with visitors. And when they come to Singapore, they are able to then discover that passion in Singapore itself. And I think earlier on, one of our speakers, Mr. Joseph Pines, talked about transformational. I think in a certain way, we too aspire to be a transformational destination where it helps people, it connects people with Singaporeans with common passion as they do, right? I think the challenge about doing that is really about data. How do we then anticipate what do our visitors need when they come to Singapore? Data, I believe everyone is right on top of their list when it comes to digital transformation. Likewise for us. In Singapore Tourism Board, we're investing quite a bit of our resources into two big technology stacks. One is our analytics network, where we do a lot of our big data. A lot of data crunching comes from there. We spent the past 18 months, or 24 months to be precise, combing through our data, cleaning it up, enabling us to do analytics, profiling visitors, enabling us to understand better what our visitors are doing. The other tech stack that we are building is our Tourism Information and Systems Services Hub, right? That is actually a content management system. Basically, as I said, Singapore is not a very big place. We want to make sure that we bring along as much stakeholders as we can, and I think the strategy to do that is through digitalization. So by building a content management system, we are encouraging stakeholders to put their information, pictures, rates, walk-in timings, things that they need to let other people know who they are online, the content on our hub. Our content management hub is API gateway. So basically, if you connect to the Tourism Information Hub, when a stakeholder changes data on their back end, anyone that's connecting to our system gets updated almost instantaneously as well. Now this helps, especially if you are an app developer, you will understand that if you were to build an app for a destination, you would probably have 60 to 80 listings easily at any one point in time. If any one of your stakeholders were to change some of their menu, were to change some of their program, you would always constantly having to go back and making sure that your content is up to date. Now connecting to our system will enable that to be done automatically. So we hope that that will help our stakeholders have a leg up and ensure that, you know, whatever progress that we develop in tourism front, we try to bring along as many stakeholders as we can. And linking between these two systems, we're using artificial intelligence to build a recommendation engine so that when we start to build profiles of a certain visitor, if I know that, for example, if you are, say, a 30-year-old Korean lady coming to Singapore, I would have collected enough data to understand what is it that you like in Singapore. And when you open up our visitor app, hopefully we will be able to give you recommendation of what you think or what I've collected about in the past, what Korean ladies like to do in Singapore. And you may find that information useful. But if you have something else and you start to look for it, I will be able to start noticing that, hey, you are now looking for something else. And once that data point becomes more obvious, we will now begin to change whatever we recommend to Korean ladies when they do come to Singapore. So things like this are investment that Singapore Tourism Board is basically placing our bets on. And we hope that by doing so, this information and this data that we are sharing with the industry. And we hope that by doing that, more industries will be able to make wiser business decisions, data-based business decisions, and that will help them basically help to improve their business as we improve our tourism.
Okay, thank you very much. In my observation, Singapore is everything is good. Is about, however, having said that, do business, the startup business. How do you support the tourism startup business? It's actually urban tourism needs innovation and change in the industry. So how do you support new business, venture capitals, venture something?
Thank you for the question. We have various support structures. Of course, the more conventional ones will be through grants. Basically, we have a very established grant system enabling businesses to create either new experiences, innovate, or improve their business productivity. We've got grants that help MICE companies set up new events in Singapore. So even if you are attraction in Singapore, if you want to improve your experience, we have an experience grant on that as well. Recently, we have done a few innovation challenge. Basically, what we did was we talked to various industry associations and we found out what then are the key pressing problems facing each industry. And we posed that question to a set of tech startups and innovation companies, tech companies, hopefully using whatever they have that they have applied in other industries to see whether is it relevant to apply to tourism companies and basically pitch to the tourism companies about their solutions. And basically anyone that has managed to pair off, we support them by giving a grant to help pilot that solution. And if that pilot comes out to be successful, what happens is that that particular solutions get green lane into our grant structure. And any company that would like to adopt that solution, it will be much faster processing time if they were to find that, for example, recently we've got a tech company that managed to use robotics to cook an egg in a hotel buffet line. It helps to basically free up a chef. Instead of putting a chef there to cook up an egg or omelette, it's done by a robot. And basically we found that a lot more people like to eat eggs now, especially children, because it's quite interesting to see a robot flipping eggs for you. So with that basically helped to save some of our problem in terms of manpower, which I think for Singapore, it is a big constraint. And in the same time, it has been proven to be something which is an attractive option. People come and see such interesting things as well. So all these are help that we try to bring our tourism companies along.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Fernando, you're from private sectors. Mr. Ahmed mentioned that the terms of disruptive technology. So some technology may be a killer content, killer device to improve, to change the system or industry. Do you have any examples to develop this technological change, innovation in tourism sector?
Sure. So, yes, I come from a company called Transparent, ctransparent.com. We are a startup based in Madrid, and we have a team member in Los Angeles as well. And we specialize in the short-term rental market data. Mm-hmm. So this is a pretty big sector. It's almost 1 out of every $4 that are invested today in lodging are going into private accommodations, into short-term rentals, and it's growing. It's growing that much that I see many municipalities worried, many destinations worried, many hoteliers worried. And so it's kind of a hot sector to be in. And we are able to do what we do with technology. It's our technology that allows us to unify all the public information there is on the short-term rentals. We put it together, we clean it, we normalize it, we enrich it with more sources of data, private and public. And with all that data, we start seeing insights. So when working with destinations, for example, and I'm not here to say if this sector is good or is it bad. I think it's an opportunity for everybody. So how could it be an opportunity to destinations? Well, first of all, because 1 out of every $4 spent in lodging is going here. And destinations, and some more than others, are investing in data to know where travelers are coming from, when will they be coming. Hoteliers tell them where they stay, where do they come from, how much they spend, what occupancy rates are, ADRs, RevPARs, everything. But then again, you're looking only at 75% of the market. And if you don't dedicate resources to see into that other 25%, you are missing a trend that is big enough and that it is growing. So what we can do for destinations, for example, is we see future demand, and we see it today. And this is kind of tricky because years ago, travelers used to book travels with many months in advance, maybe from 1 year to another. In this sector, in 2014, on average, a traveler booked with 100 days in advance in 2014. In 2017, the median booking window has been of 48 days. And you are not booking anymore for 7 nights, as you used to do. You are booking it for 3.48. So it's short-term travels booked in short, and it's growing. So you can see a destination worried about how many visitors am I going to get. This is like a big cruise, like the ones that go in Greece, but just suddenly like this in a given weekend in a city. So we aggregate the future demand by unifying all this data that's in these platforms, and we can know, for example, that Manu, for the Beovia San Sebastian, which is a very nice race that takes place, I think, at the beginning of November, things are starting to heat up. And prices have grown by 50% already, and we are 2 months away of the event, and we know where travelers are booking and in which parts of the city. And of course, this is a race, but if we look into the case of Lisbon, Lisbon will host in about 60 days the Web Summit, which is a really nice event for startups and venture capital, and brings more than 60,000 attendees to the city. Now, the event takes place, I think it's in the northern east side of the city, but all the short-term rentals in the city are mainly concentrated in the center of the city, in Chiado, in these nice neighborhoods. So if you're a destination, and specifically in Portugal, where Portugal Tourism runs also has some responsibilities on managing transportation and policemen and everything, you might want to know where these people are going to stay and at what times are they going to travel to the event, so that you can plan to close some roads to the traffic, or put more policemen in the street, more people in the information offices, or even put more buses just to take the people there, right? The good thing, and I like your line about their data and what you're doing in Singapore, because I like the quote by Jim Bergsdale that says, if we have data, let's look at data. Mm-hmm. If all we have are opinions, let's stick with mine, right? Or in our case, with the highest rank and politician in the room, usually, right? It's better to take decisions based on data. And if you do this in this sector, you will be able to, not to fight it, but to see it as an opportunity and to enhance all your resources to be able to obtain the maximum from it.
Okay, thank you so much. So we are a little bit behind the schedule, so we are going to go to the floor for the question and answer. Audience, do you have any question and some comments? So we have a question here.
So we're going to begin the live Q&A. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at your ID card on the back side, there is a QR code. So using this QR code, you can download our Summit application. If you go to Program, you will see Session and then Session Talk. And in the Session Talk, you can upload your questions, and we'll be able to see those questions on the screens. So once again, if you go to your ID card, there is a QR code, and you can download the application for our summit. If you go to Program, there is a corner called Session Talk, and you can upload your questions there.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Ahmed, I think you can add something. You brought up the concept, very, very important concept, hub and spoke. In order to develop urban destination, I think it's a hub and spoke, a very important concept. Could you, is a contribution to?
Yeah, thank you. I think all destinations presented today showed us that, if you take Nice, for example, the French Riviera, so you move from Menton, from Zafar, east all the way, number of cities until you reach Marseille. So these are all important hubs. But if you want to have the experience fulfilled in the French Riviera, if you just go a little bit north, there are a number of beautiful heritage villages, and the experience there, France, you excel in doing it. You try the gastronomy, the drinks, and each village is specialized in something, So once you think of a tourism circuit in the province or in the department or region that combines the attractions in the hubs and the spokes around it, whether it's culture, heritage, nature, wine tasting, beach, sport, you offer tourists a rich, diversified experience. And then if you combine with other elements we talked about, livability, inclusiveness, and so on, you provide them with safe, rich, safe itinerary, that combines diversified products. So that's the concept of hubs and spokes. But what I would like also to emphasize, I think what we learned from all cases mentioned today, is the integrated tourism planning, you know. You cannot just say, I'm going to fix transport from one point to another and that tourists will be happy. We have seen an integrated way of thinking. We have seen an integration of citizens in the planning process, the inclusiveness. We have seen the involvement of data in the decision-making process, so it's data-driven, empirical analysis. I think that integrated approach that, especially for fast-growing destinations, is essential now. And I have been working with so many destinations, and what we have seen here, Singapore is a pioneer example, how the master plan people work with the tourism planning. Even in the vision actually is called tourism plan, you know. So I think it's inevitable. If we want to be a successful destination, we have to think big, we have to think in an integrated way and then inclusive of all segments of the community.
Okay, we have one question here. So who do you think your future-oriented people, expert? Is we got to emphasize it 2030. What is the competitive factor for city to, as a destination for tourism? Not now, for 2030. So, Vice Mayor? Okay.
Yes, I think we are going in more and more authenticity. If you go in a city for tourism, and if you find exactly the same thing that in the other cities, you don't create, add valor, you know. You don't create valor. And I think it's necessary to work on the authenticity. Also, we have to work on the welcome. And that's personal invest. You can have all the technologies. If you don't have this welcome by the people, you will not be successful. And the welcome begins at the airport, the taxi, the hotel, the restaurants, the shopping, and the people in the street. And for the general ambience of the city, you have to, when you think about tourism for your city, you have always to ask the question, I do that, is it good for tourism? Is it good for citizens? And I think the need of the citizens and the residents, and the citizens and the tourists are the same. But we have also to be careful of the balance. Very important. You don't have to opposite the tourists and the citizens, but you have to convince your citizens that tourism is very important for them because it creates a lot of employees. And this industry is not delocalized, you know, because when you have a city with the riches, with patrimony, you are not going to export it and find it in another country. When you have an industry, the industry can change city and go in another country. That not. So it's your own riches. But to develop these riches, you have to convince your residents that it's our own riches and they have to develop with you.
Okay, Manu?
I do agree with him. I mean, the case, people still must be proud of this village, this town, this home. So we must keep sustainability. We must improve the quality of life. We also have to be balanced in all over the world. Inhabitants with foreigners, with visitors, but balance also in the activities we used to do, and authentic. It's the real key. Yes, still be authentic, because people which come to see us, to enjoy with us, must experience us. This morning, as we listen to the the experience is the most important, and you only can live an experience when you feel like an authentic experience.
Okay, thank you so much. We have another question, is about over tourism. maybe it's related to carrying capacity in the city. We're gonna limit the number of tourists from foreign countries. So we talk about over-tourism issue. However, Macau expanded their carrying capacity to accommodate more than the numbers. So, Ahmed, is it you going to mention that?
You know, as I said earlier, increased tourist arrival is something to celebrate, not something to be shy about and take a political decision, I'm going to shut it down or limit the number. It's a positive phenomena. Problems happen when we are reactive. Oops, we have 5 million, we have 20 million visitors. We have very poor infrastructure. Infrastructure is not coping with it. People have no jobs associated with tourism, and they are complaining. This is, in my opinion, a reactive planning process that ignores a problem that has been growing for a while, and then suddenly we're trying to fix it by reactionary, a measure like limit the number. I think I would like to emphasize again that once a destination is growing, any number above 5%, that's an indicator that this destination, if it's not well planned, well managed, we understand the carrying capacity, we apply the 4 pillars we mentioned, I can assure you this destination is heading to a problem.
Okay. Anyway, carrying capacity is a very important concept. It's physical carrying capacity, social carrying capacity. Those factors really we should consider attract tourists from outside. Is another question here. Technological innovation can create additional value to both resident visitors. Is a question.
Certainly, I think there shouldn't be a line drawn between what is good for tourists and what is good for residents. I think the line, there's no line, because we are all consumers, right? So when we do any technology innovation, it has to be good for both the residents and the visitors. And more often than not, your own countrymen, your own residents are your best customers, because they do not need to take a plane to fly to get to your businesses, to get to your attractions. They are there, right? And they are the most picky ones, because they have been there, they have seen your attraction, they have seen your businesses. To get them to come back, you really have to up your game. So in terms of innovation, I feel that information is key. Meaning, are you able to get timely information onto the hands of your consumers so that they know when can they make that decision? So I think today's technology has allowed us to do that, has allowed timely information to be sent to your consumers. And I think a little bit of analytics will definitely do a lot more good for a business. For example, if by just knowing your weather, you are able to now know that a certain attraction, for example, a zoo, right? If the weather forecast is that rain is going to come very soon, now it gives you an opportunity to now think about how do you then, where will your customers going to be, right? The customers will definitely be buying a whole lot more umbrellas. Are you stocked up for that? Are your indoor attractions ready to accommodate that much or accommodate tourists and visitors? So having that information, having that little bit of analytics on hand will really serve not just your tourists, but your local residents well as well. So in Singapore, a lot of our attractions, their businesses, actually more than half are supported by local residents and the other half by tourists. So we don't tend to draw the line. Both are important, right? So that's my take on this.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to conclude this session. I believe we had a very fruitful discussion. In particular, demanding of a new urban agenda and sustainable development goal, making cities a human settlement, safe, inclusive, resilient, and sustainability. That's going to be applied to the until the 2030s. I like to mention here one terms here, symbiosis, which means close interaction between two or more different species. Have you ever heard the phrase, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine? The idea of helping someone to get some help in return is essential of a symbiotic relationship. As Mr. Ahmed mentioned that, competitive destination and livable destination and inclusive destination as well as resilient destination. That's very harmonious as a state of destination. So we gotta pursue the goals of those destination. I really thank you so much. Please, big hand speakers and all panels. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Professor Kim and our panelists, if you could sit down once again. For each session, we're going to have a special ceremony. So on your table, you will see a little card, and if you could write maybe a few key words or a few thoughts about this session, we're going to take a group photo after you write down your thoughts on the card. So if you could take a minute to sit down. I think the card is on the table on your right-hand side. So if you could write just a few thoughts, a few key words regarding the session, we're going to take a group photo afterwards. For the other guests, if you could please remain in your seats for a few minutes. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be very long, just maybe a few words. So this is going to be a little ceremony that we will have after each session to help us remember our time here in Seoul at the 7th UNWTO Global Summit. And while our panelists are writing out the cards, for the other participants, if you look on your table, you will find a survey prepared by Seoul Metropolitan Government and UNWTO. So if you could fill out those surveys and submit it to the registration desk on the first floor, it would be much appreciated. Thank you. So if everyone is ready, please step forward. So we would like to have the moderators standing in the middle. Right, if you could hold up your cards and face our photographer. So please look at our photographer and big smiles, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the session after lunch is always very tough, but I think our panelists and moderator, they kept us awake, and we want to thank them for a very interesting and lively discussion. So please give them another big round of applause. Thank you. And we're now going to have a 20-minute coffee break. After the coffee break, we will begin with session 2. Coffee and refreshments are prepared outside in the lobby. Thank you.